No matter how well your insomnia treatment is going, there's probably going to be a time where you get that real gut-wrenching fear that no matter what you do, you're never going to escape from your insomnia and you're going to go back to square one again. And it's something that I see with my clients pretty much all the time, and it's certainly something that happened to me during my own insomnia treatment as well. And if you can expect it and be aware of it and know what to do about it, hopefully I can prevent you from going down the rabbit hole. And if I can't do that, at least by normalizing it, I can show you the way out. And so in terms of how it happened to me, it was probably 3 months after my own insomnia treatment had finished. So I'd done my 8-week sleep program and I had pretty good results during it. So by the end of it, I wasn't a good sleeper again. I wasn't a normal sleeper again, but I was probably 80-90% of the way there, and I had the tools that I could use to prevent me from ever going back to insomnia again, or so I thought. And I'd had good nights of sleep, I'd had setbacks, I'd had relapses, but overall, for the first time in 20 years, I could actually see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though I wasn't there yet. And 3 months after my course had finished, for whatever reason, I got a poor night of sleep. And then I got a second poor night of sleep. Then I got a third poor night of sleep. And when I say poor, I mean just as bad as the nights of sleep I'd had when my insomnia was at its worst. And whilst I'd had setbacks and relapses before, these nights, they were worse than anything I'd ever had, because it felt like I'd gone straight back to square one. So all the work, all the effort felt like it had all been for nothing. And I felt there and then that I was going to go right back to how things were. Everything that I'd been doing up to this point had been a fluke, and that I would never, ever escape my insomnia. And it was absolutely gut-wrenching when I felt that, because I was just so desperate to escape it. When my insomnia was at its worst, I'd completely lost all hope. I was spending 14, 15 hours in bed, lying down in a dark room in a spare room on a mattress on the floor, unwashed, curtains drawn, crap all around the bed, playing online chess every single day, separated myself physically from my wife, so shut the door so that I could just lie there and suffer. My business was going down the tubes, my friendships were getting lost. It was basically everything that I was completely lost, and I had no hope, no purpose, and I felt like I had no future. And the thought of going back there and be back in that place when I'd been doing so well up to that point, when I thought that I'd almost got end of the tunnel, just the thought of going back to that place, which I was so desperate to escape from, was probably one of the worst things that I had experienced since my insomnia, because it felt like everything I'd done up to that point had all just been for nothing, and I'd have to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life living it like the past 20 years, and that just wasn't something that was acceptable to me. And so what I think is really helpful, if you ever do have these real bad, severe relapses, is just to understand that it is completely impossible to go back to how things were. So if you imagine yourself in this really dark, scary forest, and everywhere you look, there's pathways, overgrown, thorny pathways, and they all look the same to you. One of them's sleep hygiene, one of them's kiwi fruits, one of them supplements, one of them warm bath, one of them Andrew Huberman, one of them is, all the nonsense that you've tried in the past, which just creates more anxiety, so much force, so much effort around your sleep. And you have no idea which path to choose. And as part of this path, you've got what I share with people, CBTI, or whatever my version of CBTI is. During your 20 years or 10 years or 5 years of insomnia, you've tried all these paths and none of them have worked. Once you start down the path that does work, the course that you're on now, you know that this pathway does actually lead you out of insomnia. So when you start down the path of CBTI, once you learn about what causes and perpetuates insomnia, once you start putting these amazing behavioural changes in place and start seeing results, once you start getting stuck back into your life again, once you stop doing all the damaging things which you're using to try and control and force yourself to sleep, you know which path is actually helpful to get you out of insomnia. So even if you stumble off that path, even if you go back to the beginning, at least now you know which path to choose. So now you know with absolute certainty, boom, that path right ahead of me, it no longer looks the same as all the other paths. I know with absolute certainty, if I carry on down that path, eventually I will escape from my insomnia. And so that's how things are different now. And so that's that real deep visceral fear that you might experience during your insomnia. Another lesser fear is, what if this is as good as it gets? So say you've been sleeping better for 4 or 5 months, but there's always that little niggle in the back of your head that you're never going to get back to how you were before you'd had your insomnia. So before you had your insomnia, you never used to think about sleep at all during the daytime. Now, even after 5 months, yes, you're doing the right behavioural changes. Yes, you're getting stuck back into your days again. Yes, you're doing all the right things and you're actively trying to prevent your thought patterns from burrowing down into this real dark place. There's still that effort, there's still that force, there's still that kind of having to constantly check your thought patterns, check your behaviours. Things just don't feel natural like they used to before you had ever experienced insomnia. And often people say to me, where I feel like I'm good, I'm 90% of the way there, I just need that extra 10% because it's still kind of there. I still kind of feel that I'm never going to be entirely free of it. What do I do? And my answer is always the same. You don't need to do anything. Once you get to that point, you need to do absolutely nothing. So if you were to think back to the first day of your job, for example, if you were asked to do a task then, you probably would have been a little bit anxious before you're doing it. Probably you were asking your colleagues how to do this particular task. But now you've been in that job for 5 years. And that task that would have caused you a lot of anxiety and you'd have had to think about and worry about a lot when you were first asked to do it. When you first started your job, someone asked you to do it now. Absolutely no anxiety, no worry about it whatsoever. You basically do it with your eyes shut. It's like, like riding a bike. So what's the difference between when you first started your job and where you are 5 years down the line? And the only difference is 5 years. It's time, it's repetition, it's consistency. You haven't actively tried to do anything differently. You've just had 5 years where you've been doing this job and everything has been working well. And so things that used to worry you, used to make you stressed, you used to think about, you literally don't pay any thought or attention to whatsoever. And that's just kind of how it is once you're through your insomnia and through your sleep. The thing which turns 90% good sleep into good sleeper, normal sleeper, someone who never obsesses, someone who never thinks about sleep whatsoever, is literally just time. And that is all I can really tell you on that subject. Give it time and eventually you'll just detach more and more from that person. That identity you used to have of being insomnia will get replaced day by day, brick by brick, as an identity of someone who is a normal sleeper. Please do comment because it really helps me push it on the algorithm, because it shows the YouTube algorithm that people like this video. Even if you want to insult me and tell me that my videos are too rambly, do so. If it's been the first time you've commented, I'd love to hear it. Like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that stuff that you normally hear on the end of a YouTube video, please do that. And if you want to hear my sleep masterclass, please take a look at this video. Ha!